We're live. Welcome to another Office Hours. We have a guest today, Eric, joining us in person, and Nate's back this week. So I guess I'll let Nate kick off with what he did last week, which was some cool stuff around, I think, DOM and event, like page loading events, right?
Yeah, I added a couple things. So previously, actually, there was like I made a change because previously there was some inconsistency that the app proto create event was only being called right at the beginning once. And actually, since you're creating a new page every time you do a client-side render, it really should be called every time, similar to how components call their create event every time they're made. So I fixed that, so it now actually calls the create event consistently every time it does a full page render. Well, it's not the event, it's a method. And then I added a new event that only happens once, and actually the other event, there was a case where it didn't happen, which is also problematic. So there's a new event, app on create, or sorry, not on create, on load, which is basically like when the app is done rendering and it fires only once client side. So if there's something you want to do once in the browser after loading, that's the event you should use, is app on load, which has come up before since that's a relatively common thing people want to do.
But Nate, isn't it the same as app on ready?
No. So there's a sequencing. Ready is before render. Load is after render.
Okay.
Ready is like, maybe the name wasn't the best in retrospect, but I didn't want to change it. So the ready event happens earlier so that you could do stuff in the model before rendering if for some reason you need to. But if you're going to, like, for example, change something in the data, you don't want to do that before rendering typically because you want the data to be the same on the client as it was on the server, so the rendering will be the same. So usually you want to wait until after. So specifically the reason we implemented this, and I added the event at that moment, was we wanted to render relative times, which is similar to like time zone, the issues with time zones. So the problem with time zones is on the server, your time zone is probably GMT or whatever it is, and the client can be any number of time zones. So we basically have to keep track of on the server like this user's time zone, and then render the date in their time, or alternatively just not render the date and then only render it in the client. Those are like your two good options. So the right time to sort of indicate like, oh, hey, it's time to render times now would be after load, because you would want to, you basically want to make sure the first render is the same as it was on the server. And the other thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to have a relative time that updated. So we set the time on the server, like the now time on server during rendering, and then on the client, after load, we update it with an interval. So we just like update the time every second, and then use that as input to rendering the time. So it'll say like 5 seconds ago, and 6 seconds ago, and 7 seconds ago, etc. So anyway, that was our use case, but you can imagine there's probably a variety of reasons. So it's specifically ready is before rendering, load is after. That's all you need to know. And what else? So then I also added two sort of, I guess, synthetic events, if you will. They're not really events, but they're just kind of extensions, which is that you can call DOM on create and destroy for elements, as well as in your templates you can say on create and on destroy for elements, which are not native DOM events at all, but they don't conflict with any of the native events. And that way, if you want to get an event when Derby over-renders something, like if an element disappears from the page because of Derby's rendering, you can use onDestroy, which can be handy. It's possible to do this with native DOM APIs using mutation observers, but it's kind of inconvenient and complicated. So Derby has to check to see what it's rendering over anyway for internal bookkeeping purposes, so it can like clean up stuff. So I just added the events since they're pretty handy. So for example, if you have something that's like, specifically the reason I implemented it is we have a tip component that shows up relative to the position of something else, but that other thing sometimes disappears because something changes. And so that way you can like notice that that thing went away and then remove the thing that was tied to it.
Does this also let us do sort of more conveniently the on-create or the fade in and fade out transitions if we wanted to?
You could use it for that, although I'd say the sort of more correct way to do that maybe is to do it more model-driven, but yeah, arguable. There's a lot of times multiple ways to do things. That could work. On-create might just be a handy way to like get a reference to all the elements of a specific type that as they come about and go away. So I don't know. I just added the create because it was easy. I didn't actually have a use case in mind, but it seemed like if you're going to add destroy, you might as well add create. And it's consistent with the events that components have. So that seemed handy. In general, I try and make components and elements kind of like have the same features. Then I added 2 new things. So as has been a feature which I actually changed ever so slightly, so hopefully I didn't break anybody's apps, but basically it used to happen on a slightly different time in rendering. It would happen for components as they were created, for elements also as they were created, which would basically mean that it would happen at the time that like the thing existed, not necessarily in the page, but just kind of like floating in, just the object existed land. So I changed it to only actually get fired after things had been put into the actual document, so that at that time, Derby could check the order of the placement in the document, which was, I'll explain in a minute why. But just to make all the as features consistent, I made them all do it at that time. Let me know if that broke somebody's use case, but I think it should be fine.
Yeah, it broke my table, actually.
Good to know. Sorry about that. But if you were, hopefully you're able to fix it. If not, I can hopefully give you a tip on how to fix it.
Yeah, I'll try to fix it. Yeah, I also looked through your code that you changed, and I understood that you're doing it on different timing right now. So I'm thinking about how to change the API to account for it, but it should be fine, I think.
Okay. So basically, the thinking behind it was that it's handy to have a reference to a specific element, but also sometimes you have like a generic set of things. So the other things I added were you can say as array or as object, and with as object you specify a path plus also a key. So you can basically build a sorry. I'm really having trouble silencing my phone. So yeah, the Hangouts app is anyway. Long story. So the basic idea is that you might want to keep track of references to multiple things that are all kind of like similar, which you previously couldn't do with as. So a lot of times you'd have to just create a class and then use query selector. Which is sort of like the old school jQuery way of doing things, and as is sort of awesome and a lot simpler. So I added as array, which basically gives you the ability to have a list of things that's all, it's sort of like a live query selector, all in a way. Basically gives you a list of all of the elements or things, it could be elements or components, that are in document order, and then the other thing is as object is basically you can give it a key, so it'll just be like on an object with a specific key. So you might say like use some sort of ID to create a map. So anyway, handy new features, and it uses the document order at the time that it does the rendering and doesn't keep that up to date. So if things move around, you might need to resort the list if you care about the order of the array thing. But I think for most use cases, that didn't seem really worth like dealing with yet. But if that comes up, I might have to fix that later.
So it doesn't keep track of the order when it changes? Is that what you're saying?
The array order is supposed to be the same as the order of the stuff in the document, but it doesn't update the order if the order changes.
Okay.
So if you have like multiple like list items, let's say, it'll be in the order that they're rendered in, but if the order changes, it doesn't currently reorder. It would probably be better if it reordered, but I just haven't done it yet. So you could actually just reorder the list yourself manually using the compare document position function, which is how the order is determined the first time. And actually, as I'm talking about this, I just realized that if you put elements and components in the same array, there's a bug with that. So you should probably write that down.
Key right there.
Elements and arrays in the same array?
Yeah, currently the code is written assuming that you only put components or elements into one array. I didn't do a type check, which I should have done. Just realized. Just in case you make a mixed array, which would be weird, but
people will do it.
People always do weird stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I did on Derby. So hopefully some handy new features. So Pavel, you were able to get your thing to work, or?
I think I'll be able to do it. I'll let you know in the Gitter chat if I won't, and
Okay. Cool.
I'll think about a solution.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, so one option actually is I could make the property one happen right away, and I thought about this, and make the other one, make only the array one be delayed, or make the array and the object one be delayed, because only the array one actually needs the document order to do its job, but that seemed a little weird that they happen at different times, so I don't know. I was conflicted, honestly. So it seems like a sharp edge either way. So I just did it at create time because it was consistent, at least.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me share what I did recently.
Go for it.
Here's a link on the DerbyJS. So I was actually struggling with this for a long time, like for maybe 1.5 years or so. I was trying to test the Derby application to do some client testing on Phantom or something similar to Phantom.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, the most useful library to do this is DerbyJS, but there are lots of different tricks that you need to know to test the Derby right with Casper. And also, it's pretty hard to access modal and like history and like this kind of stuff. So I moved everything into a module, which I call DerbyJS, and it's kind of a bunch of helpers to help you to test Derby application with Casper. So here's the link on it.
So
yeah, go on.
Derby Cache and Derby Casper.js are two different models?
Yeah, the cache is someone else did that. So they're not here right now. I guess we won't hear about it. But cool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So what it does, like the main thing to know when you try to client test it is that you need to wait until everything loads. And so this Derby Casper.js provides you with a thing that plugs into app on ready and on route done to make a flag that rendering is completed, and I also override the default method in Casper that waits until the URL is being loaded. So like instead of this, it's now tweaked to work with Derby in the right way. And there are a bunch of helpers for modal, to access modal from Casper.js, and to access history, to do history push and wait until the until the page loads client side and the bundle initializes itself. So like all of this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's going to be pretty useful because there were questions about how to test it on the client side, and I personally struggled with this for a long time. And
Nice.
Very cool.
yeah.
Very cool. It's useful.
Yeah.
We should actually have a tutorial explaining this on the Derby site since it's a common question.
For sure. How does this compare to like Selenium, like the stuff Eric was playing?
I don't know. Well, he was using WebDriver, which is similar to Selenium, but slightly different. Selenium is like an extension, and WebDriver is like just a scripting thing, but they're based on the same source. I don't know how it compares to WebDriver, but we should maybe look into both of them. Does Casper use Phantom?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that's probably the main difference. WebDriver is built for integrating with like regular browsers mostly.
Yeah, but did you try the WebDriver? Because actually I was trying different tools. I was also trying to do the Selenium tests with the WebDriver, but it wasn't working with Derby at all. And sometimes it was just, it didn't fill some inputs, or it didn't wait until the page is being loaded completely, and all this different weird little things that just get on your way and prevent you from easily writing tests.
Yeah.
So
we had got some stuff working with it, but to be honest, haven't spent much time on it yet.
Cool. Yeah, nice, man. Good job. Yeah. So I guess I can share. Last weekend, I did a workshop. Well, actually, a friend of mine taught a workshop on D3. It was like 6 hours long, like a full day. And the thing I showed last office hours, the Cypher thing, we tried it out in the class. So like we had the instructor kind of live code some D3 and have everyone else like fork that and play with it. So I put the links in the notes, but we ended up with a bunch of, I guess you guys can't see that, but let me put this in screen share for a second. So we had, these are all like the results of students doing stuff, and it was really cool because, I mean, it's pretty inefficient, but you could actually, while this was happening, you could just watch on this screen everybody coding. Like if you actually, can you go back one, go to the Iris dataset one, and then if you take, I don't know, yeah, just like click on like this one, let's say, the first basic, this one. Yeah, the title. Still have a bunch of UX to do, and then click fork. We should see, I guess it pops up down here at the bottom.
No, I can change like the name there.
Oh wait, you might have to, can you log in with, it's just only using your public data. Shit, now we gotta find it again.
Is it or this is the one we just?
No, you didn't. It didn't actually make anything because you weren't logged in. But if you just click one of those,
this fork.
Yeah. So then we should see this. Yeah, we see it here. We see him changing the name. And then if you were to, let's see, add a comma and you can do a fill.
In the actors?
Yeah. And then type a string with a hex code in it. then we see it and then click on that hex code and change the colors.
Ah, nice.
And so we see it live changing, yeah, on the dashboard. And then if I go and look at what he's doing, I see his cursor, he'll see mine.
What?
I guess, yeah, other people are following along, so we see their cursors. You can also just hide the cursors, because it turns out that was a really important feature for the teacher, like as the teacher was like trying to demo and everyone's cursors were showing up. But yeah, so this, I mean, it all worked. Like I said before, though, it's like super prototypical. Nothing is optimized or even access controlled. So like it's all client-side access control, right? Oh, no one can see my quotes. I'll stop screen sharing. It's all access control. But I mean, I figured like I would just get it working like I wanted it to work, and then go in and do a pass. And it's actually already been a really good exercise for me in terms of just doing the motions of building out an application. And then, you know, some of the things too, the more interesting things you realize is like when stuff like this, and I'm sure you guys think about this a lot, Pavel, is like how you look at time differently when things are real time, right? Like, so a lot of sorting and filtering is like what I end up wanting to do is like, oh, I want to see the things that are active right now, right? Which is not something you normally think about, I think, in a lot of applications. Or show me all the things that were, you know, like order it by the most recently edited things, or and then but that has its own problems where things would like jump around a lot if you do it too real time. But yeah, it just opened up this whole, like for me, like a whole world of like, oh wow, I want to organize these things based on time now rather than the usual like by who did it and how many votes they have or whatever. Yeah. So it's pretty fun. Yeah.
It's neat.
Yeah, just awesome. Great job, yeah. It's really awesome.
Yeah. But I still need from you, Pavel, how you did the stylus and CoffeeScript.
Oh, stylus! I just do the preprocessors. I plug them in on the client side, and I run the function from the web workers. I use the parallel.js to run them in a web worker. Parallel.js.
Does that make web workers really easy or something? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, but you can actually just do web workers yourself if you want.
Too bad if you're like doing like one call.
Yeah, and over there they have also a function to require scripts into the web worker, like the parallel.require. You can use it to require the script file to compile Coffee and to compile Stylus and to compile like Jade. And basically that's it. Like inside of the web worker, you just run the compilation and you get the output, you get the result out the web worker back to your main process, and that's when you render the result into the iframe.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I want to play with that. Actually, yeah, because we need that definitely in our internal version of this, because everyone here writes in Coffee and Stylus. And
yeah, sure. And we also write in Jade, so also
right. So made the Jade thing, yeah.
Yeah, well, I also made the Jade thing. Yeah, I'm actually thinking about open sourcing it. It's just that I didn't have time to work on it for the last week. But when I'm gonna get to it again, maybe this weekend, I was thinking about open sourcing it, and you can just copy code from my version into yours.
Well, I vote for that. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay.
Sweet.
Yeah. There is also one thing that you'll need to add. You'll need to add a prevention to the loops, and you can just Google for the JS bin, how they did it.
So they open sourced that.
Yeah, jsbin.com. This is also the same thing that we actually did with you. They also do it on the client side, so we're not the first who thought about it. And they have a GitHub, JSBin, and they have a project to the loop prevention. infinite loop prevention,
Nice.
which is called somehow, loop protect.
Sweet. That was something I always wanted to add to tributary too, and never like.
Yeah. So just use this loop protect, and you're gonna be golden. It's gonna work great. No one will be able to crash it by writing just an infinite loop.
Oh, awesome! And it uses a string of JavaScript.
Yeah.
Wow, this is some serious hacky stuff, but
Yeah.
I guess that works.
Hacks on hacks on hacks.
Yeah.
So you write your code using a string.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, it's Turing. It's a Turing machine. No.
Yeah, I mean it works.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, like there is a blog post from CodeCan from Chris Coyer. He also did this in his team when they were creating the CodeCan. They tried to use this loop protect from JSBin guys, but they say that it's not always working fine, and they end up implementing their own version on Esprima parser. And but they analyze your code and they rewrite it in a way that adds a counter and prevents the infinite loop from happening.
Yeah, it seems like using that would be better. I'm actually kind of surprised they're not using Esprima. It's actually great. We're using it in Derby.
Yeah, I prototyped actually the loop protector in Esprima with a friend. We just never finished it, and it makes sense. But this is kind of exciting because actually for Cypher, one of the things I think we're going to do is collapse it into one HTML so that you do like basically writing a normal web page in the browser rather than having it split out into JavaScript, CSS, and that. And if I do that, then I'll want to do it the string way, probably.
Well, you could also check it out and still do that.
And still run it through as
JavaScript. I mean, that's what Derby does. Like Derby is basically all of the expressions are parsed via Esprima. So most of the time it's just like looking at a thing and being like, oh, that's an identifier, or like, oh, hey, that's a square bracket. But like, I'm using Esprima to do it because I previously had written it by hand and it was horrible. Got a lot more featureful and less buggy when I used that. So,
yeah, Esprima's pretty fun.
It's great. Very cool project. And I guess heads up, what I'm working on this week is mostly trying to fix some crazy edge case issues that we're running into with Share, where it sometimes is not writing, which is obviously very bad. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. Looks like clients just aren't sending off sometimes. But in a very rare edge case that we still don't have a repro for, but anyway, working on it. And then the other thing is I'll be working on a bunch of performance stuff after that. Just making things use less memory, less CPU, the usual performance stuff.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, and I'm in the middle of doing a couple architecture diagrams, partly to help with the performance stuff, hopefully to disseminate the inner workings of Racer, Share, and LiveDB to the rest of our team. So obviously I'll be sharing that out as I have it, putting it under, this will be useful in the guides. Yeah. Any questions?
How many new developers did you hire this year?
This year, huh?
Not too many, unfortunately. We're working on that. We just hired a recruiter, though.
Yeah. Well, we hired a new developer recently who's starting soon.
Yeah, we have one starting in like a week, and a new engineer. But we are...
Was Eric this year? Yeah, right?
Eric was this year, so two...
And Zeus, kind of? And
Zeus, sort of, yes. So we're getting there, but we'll be ramping up hiring more now that we've got a recruiter on board, which is awesome. So it's been
You build a recruitment software, but you didn't have a recruiter yourself.
Yeah, well, that was exciting. Hiring a recruiter was particularly difficult because we didn't want to hire one that wasn't awesome. So we had a very, very high bar. So it took a while.
So that would be your most, how do you say, your beta tester, who's the most stringent beta tester you have, basically.
Yeah, in many ways.
Dog food all day. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Any questions this week or?
I do have a question.
Sure.
Like when you want to flush the database of a Derby app, so what I try to do is just throw away the stuff in Mongo, but then you also need to, like, if you're also using Redis, you also need to throw away stuff in Redis. Is there a simple way to know what to throw away in Redis? And of course, ideally there would be like something of a management command or something that does both.
So the easiest thing to do is just to use a specific database in Redis so that you can just flush the whole thing. So if you pass in a Redis client when you're setting up your store, you can use Redis's like .select and then just give it a number. So that's like actually what I recommend is just use a database specifically for the thing that you're playing with, so that you can just flush DB the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's really Redis is not optimized to make it easy to query what keys it has. They've added some features recently, but still really not designed for that. Like it's really designed for what the keys are already, and you can quickly get the values, and not so much for like what are the keys. You can use keys star, but like that's like horribly inefficient. So you never want to do that in prod for sure. And there's now a way to like iterate over all the keys, like more like a cursor. I forget what the command's called, but it's new. But still, like this is not like one of Redis's strong points. It's frankly not very good at. So yeah, that's why I recommend just segment it into its own database, and then you can flush the whole thing.
No. And I posted a small movie of on the pad of playing around with the decode mirror component.
Nice.
Actually, it was really nice to have like one thing that was I changed one small thing to it, and it was really nice that it automatically changes MIME type. So then it knows the name of, if it's a small wiki, and then it looks at the name of the page, and if then it determines the MIME type, and it's first. So there is still, like what you were talking about in the beginning, some issues with if you try to edit with lots of people at the same time. I tried it live with a bunch of students, and it went wrong in many ways, but it was really fun to play around with.
Cool.
Got it. Yeah, we should get on that. But I mean, ShareJS should be able to handle it correctly. It's just a matter of getting it the right ops.
Yeah, and also the thing. I imagine that if you just use a plain text area, then it will be much more robust.
Yeah, right now plain text area should work just fine, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think that the string div thing would be really nice, because then we could just sort of not have two competing event systems.
Yes. Though, I mean, it would probably be ideal to like let CodeMirror tell you what the events are, because diffing large things is going to be slow. So it's going to be like easier to get it right, but I just don't know if CodeMirror like gives you the events reliably that are correct in the right order. If it does, that would be more efficient, but maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we can take another pass at it. I think, yeah,
for what it's worth, Etherpad took the approach of just like diffing. They didn't actually bother with trying to get the events right. It was too hard. So, there's a long history of people just saying fuck it, I'll just do a diff.
Because you need to do the thing where you're like, I'm now like updating the model, but don't tell me to update again, and then the other way around. But then there's like, I think it was, I'm not quite clear, like race conditions where like you can get new data in from OT, but the code mirror would be slightly out of date, and then you would edit. And like the patch was to like, oh, I'm gonna like after I do everything, I'm gonna check that they're the same. But then that also would raise condition with the code mirror thing, because the code mirror would.
We shouldn't do both. That's bad.
I think the problem is that code mirror will emit events, but like the only way to get the value, like it doesn't give you the value at that event. So you go to get the value, and it's already changed from the last event. Is what the problem is. So it's not like completely synchronous, or it doesn't allow you to. I think that's what.
If that's the case, then diffing probably is the best bet. If it doesn't actually tell you what changed. If it did tell you what changed, then using it would be helpful. But I think, yeah, if it's just giving you an event so you know to like update, then
it tells you what changed, but you need to ask CodeMirror what, like it gives you these positional things, and then you say, hey CodeMirror, what's like this in like share, like not in lines and columns, but like in just absolute position, right, from the beginning of the text document. Mm-hmm. And that calls the thing that will go against like an already changed thing. So unless we manually like do the translation between what CodeMirror's like lines and characters are.
No, isn't it just a simple grid though? Or does CodeMirror just have a fixed column width? So then the math wouldn't just be very straightforward,
right? No, because if you do new lines, like you have to take into account new lines and stuff. So.
And it can also do like soft wrap. I think now it's soft wrapping. So there is no.
But when it is soft wrapping, we can like detect what the width is at that moment. I think. I don't know. Anyway, we can look into it later. But yeah, we should probably just get the diff thing working first, but
yeah,
and reliably, and then that can be an optimization later. But yeah, the only concern is with long documents, it's obviously going to get slow.
Mm-hmm.
The code is currently written in such a way that it seems to work in practice for all of our use cases. I don't know at what point it gets slow.
Well, we'll find out soon enough.
Iterative development.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well then, maybe call it for this week. And then
yes.
Well, one thing. We fixed one thing, and like, well, it's not actually fixed, but when we wiped accidentally, well, because we didn't know that we shouldn't do it, we wiped all the ops collection completely. We ran into very awful bugs in LiveDB, and one of them was about throwing an error when oplog is returning an incorrect ops. So instead of throwing an error, it should just return a callback with an error, preventing this iteration from happening, but like not crashing the server, because this thing was crashing our server. But instead, we would like to just ignore this error so that ShareJS just ignores it and doesn't apply the operation. So we fixed it in our fork, but maybe it makes sense to also fix it in the master of LiveDB to just return a callback with an error instead of throwing.
Yeah, I mean, if it is tied to a request, calling the callback is the right answer in general. So that's probably was just an oversight. So that's probably the right thing to do. Although you should always, if callbacks are optional, you should throw if there is no callback. So I imagine it's not optional in this part of the code. I'll look at it. So yeah, that's probably better. Though I'm kind of curious what was going on, because you should be able to just drop everything that's in Redis. It should be fine. The only
no, not Redis. We dropped the ops collection from the Mongo.
Oh, yeah, that might cause problems.
Yeah, so in general, it was working fine. We had some users who were using the site like for more than a day, and they were causing problems. But like the problem is that even if we wipe the ops collection, it shouldn't crash our server. But in this case, it was crashing it.
It should just crash the client. That's correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's a good change.
Yeah, can you submit a pull request, and we'll.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for figuring that out. Sweet. Open source.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
We'll get back to the ShareJS thing.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Thanks,
good to see you guys. See you next week.
Let's see next week. Bye.
Take care.